sharing for the advisory team colloquium meeting, which will be on May 18th. And then we'll have classroom recognitions during the week of May 22nd. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share about our program. I'd really like to thank Poonam Betty for her continued support on this process, and our PNTP team and Namarta Graywall for all of their hard work to help support our newest educators. We look forward to sharing updates on all of these topics during the second follow-up report in June. And now I would ask—
Thank you, Ms.
Do you have any questions?
Ahead.
Yes, is there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Twizzelman, for your detailed report. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, Member Tchaikovsky, then Member Hillis.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the update. I found myself imagining what participating in the colloquium would be like as a candidate, and it sounds like a really rich, summative, kind of reflective opportunity. I like the fact that you're using the continuum of teaching practice. Oh my goodness, what a useful tool. So yeah, I think that's great. Keep doing that. I think that gives people, you know, the objective language to describe growth. And I don't see that in all of the reports. I don't see that common referent, which I think is helpful. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Member Hillis.
Yeah, I was just curious, in the recommendation about the DEI, has there been any discussion specifically about what that looks like? I mean, obviously that's a pretty broad set of skills and orientations, and I'm just curious if kind of preliminary thoughts are already being discussed about that.
That's a great question. You know, that specific suggestion came from one of our university representatives in November. And it really, our leadership team appreciated it because it aligns with our district focus on DEI. And so at this time, many of our staff members have been participating in professional development. There's been book studies, coaching for equity, for example, and we have a real focus in our district and a commitment to help all of our teachers understand the best practices around equity and inclusion in their classroom. So it's not that we haven't ever looked at it, but I think making that an additional layer of focus for our program to make sure that we are talking about in our coach forums best practice and strategies that our coaches can bring to the teachers, and to really survey them and ask what has been helpful for them as they've learned practices, for example, around grading at a secondary level, or engaging strategies that can include students within their classroom. So we'll be excited to see that data. It'll be coming up pretty soon, and really take a look at what teachers are saying, and then explore as a team what professional development we can offer our mentors, our coaches, that then they can turn around and then help their teachers in the classroom.
Another follow-up question?
Sorry, I wasn't going to ask it, but I think what you just said is really interesting, and I appreciate the question just now. I guess I would also ask you to think, as you make these issues of inequity potentially evident and explicit within your system, I think it's going to be important to consider how to, on one hand, embolden your induction candidates and mentors to challenge these inequitable practices in a way that doesn't frustrate them and make them feel like Don Quixote. You know what I mean? I think, you know, it's good to pull the mask off of practices that have been in place for years that have systematically disempowered certain groups of people in our system. But then we've got to equip people who are doing that with courses of action that are going to lead to some, you know, measurable change. I think the idealism of a new teacher is one of our greatest assets, and we need to, I'm not saying hold them back, but keep them from being Icarus, maybe. You know, let's be strategic about understanding how the bureaucracy is arranged so that one can operate within it. You know what I mean?
I really appreciate that comment. And, you know, anytime there's some practice or philosophy or teaching strategy that we are encouraging our teachers to use based on research, based on our knowledge, there's always the potential that there are other veteran colleagues that may not be supportive of those ideas. And so it's another layer of support on how does one assimilate into the culture of their school site or their department or their grade level, and tread lightly on change, but yet hold to what they know is best for their students. And so I really appreciate that comment. Really looking at working closely with our teaching and learning division and curriculum division and the professional development that's being offered to all our staff, not just our new staff, but really helping us all to look at what are some ways if this is a systemic problem and issues that we're all really continuing to push and explore, even if it's an uncomfortable topic.
Okay, thank you. Member Cervantes.
Yes, no, thank you for the information and for the context provided. As folks were speaking and inquiring about DEI, both as a grounding framework, I also was sort of coupling this with, I noticed a difficulty in hiring a special education coach and the hurdles that sort of were in place to make that happen. I see those moments also as opportunities, right? Can we revisit how we write these job descriptions so that we are also attracting, say, talent that can come with the proper exposed and enacted values that sort of frame DEI? So maybe one of the recommendations would be rewriting these job descriptions so that you're attracting people that not only are coming with the subject content expertise, right, and special education, maybe the type of coaching you would like to see, but it could be grounded in DEI frameworks already. So that's one. And then number two is really partnering maybe intentionally with your colleges of education or maybe your county offices of education, whoever's helping with the production of your teachers, to try to be more preemptive. If you want teachers that come with the dispositions, then you go to where they're getting their pre-service and formation happening, and not wait until they get to you. And then you're like, well, they're here, we have a shortage, I kind of have to work with who showed up. But at the same time, you want to continue to train, but be as preemptive as you can, so that the talent that does get to you is a talent that's responsive to your needs already.
I so appreciate that. Thank you. And I don't know if it's okay, Namarta, to share about our classified grant. I don't know if we want to bring that up, but we were excited to see that we had applied as a district for the classified educators or classified employees grant. And we just learned that we are awarded some of the grant money for this, and we'll really be able to target classified employees. For example, our paraeducators that are in our district who might want to become a teacher. This grant will give them up to $4,800 towards tuition, books, and fees. And so, being able to sort of, grow our own within the district. We have classified employees interested in becoming a teacher. So that's another exciting opportunity we have to tap into, that staff.
Thank you. We do need to move this along. This is an action item. So do I have a motion by a committee member? Member Tchaikovsky.
I move that we accept this report from Pleasanton.
And second? Members Hallis. And we'll now do a roll call.
Tomalin Balatayo.
Aye.
Augustin Cervantes.
Aye.
Kathy Krisha.
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. And I'd like to thank Ms. Betty, the representatives from Pleasanton Unified, and thank you for a well-done report. And welcome to the new members.
Thank you.
Okay, this moves us to item number 22, a discussion of the second quarterly report from Hope International University. Consultant Dr. Michelle Williams-George will present this item. She is joined by institutional representatives Jacqueline York, Accreditation Coordinator, Dr. Doug Domine, the Dean, Corey DeWitt, Credential Analyst, Lindsay Bloom, Education Department Chair, Nancy Stichter, Assistant Professor of Education. And Dr. Williams-George, will you begin, please?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Michelle's muted.
How's that? Is that better? Okay.
Thank
Please
you.
begin again.
Let's start over. Okay. So this agenda includes the second quarterly report submitted by Hope International University addressing stipulations resulting from their April 2022 site visit. Following its findings of accreditation with stipulation at the June 2022 meeting, the Committee on Accreditation directed Hope International University to provide updates to staff at quarterly intervals and culminating in an April 2023 site revisit. These quarterly reports document progress toward addressing stipulations identified in the June 2022 accreditation report. The revisit has been scheduled for April 4 through 6 of 2023. Hope International University offers 3 educator preparation programs: the Preliminary Administrative Services Credential, the Preliminary Multiple Subject Credential, and the Preliminary Single Subject Credential. In the time between the April 2022 site visit and this January 2023 Committee on Accreditation meeting, Hope International University's program staff and administration have been working diligently to address the stipulations. This report contains the actions which have already been taken and those which are planned for the future in order to address each of the stipulations. The table provided in the agenda item on pages 3 through 12 is a summary of those actions. The full report can be found on the institution's website, which is linked on page 2 of the agenda item. It is staff's recommendation that the Committee on Accreditation accept this report from Hope International University and allow the program to continue addressing the stipulations placed on it by the Committee on Accreditation. Staff will continue to work with the institution through the remainder of the quarterly reports, as well as the April 2023 revisit. Thank you.
Thank you. We now invite institutional representatives to briefly comment on the report.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline York, and I am the accreditation chair, and I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work with Michelle as she supports us in addressing the stipulations that arose from our site visit. We spent a lot of time in Q1 designing our systems, which we could put in place to address the stipulations. Implementation began in Q2, and we will have all of our data and evidence available for Q3 and our site visit. Many of our stipulations surrounded systems that we had in place, but we were not doing a good job of tracking and being able to provide evidence of that. One of the most significant ones was that of making sure that our master teachers that we are collecting and providing evidence that they've been oriented to their supervisory role, that they are completing the training, that we're completing ongoing training. One of the significant accomplishments that we had this quarter was creating a site for our master teachers that provides all of the information that they need, as well as links to the assessments that they complete for our student teachers, and that's been very well received. They master teachers have always had good things to say about Hope and our relationship. Our university supervisors spend a lot of time in their classrooms, but this is just an added step that we've taken to make sure that they're better trained, and we have evidence of that and better support. So that was a great accomplishment that we had Q2. Another one of the significant improvements that we made was with respect to our assessments. So the midterm assessment and the final assessment, as well as each formal observation that happens in the student teaching classroom, we took the feedback from CTC and our site visit committee to evaluate those and making sure that we were collecting data that we would really be able to use to disaggregate and aggregate to make sure that we were using the data effectively for program improvement. And so those are some of the other significant improvements that we made in Q2. And we will continue to work towards addressing all of the stipulations, have even more evidence Q3, and we look forward to the site visit in April.
Thank you, Ms. York. Any other institutional representatives wish to comment? Okay, this time, are there comments or questions from committee members? Okay, seeing no questions or comments, this is an action item. Do I have a motion? Member Forbes?
I move we accept the report of Hope International University, second quarterly report.
Okay, and second? Co-chair Frelly, and can we do a roll call?
Tourmaline Bolatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Kathy Gracia,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Gerard Morrison,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I'd like to thank all our representatives from Hope International, and thank you for your work thus far, and thank you, Dr. Williams George.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and this moves us to item number 23, the report of the Accreditation Revisit Team for Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District. Consultant Dr. Michelle Williams George will join us again. She is joined by the Revisit Team lead Melissa Beats Hall, another name we've seen today, and institutional representatives Samantha Lettle, Program Coordinator, and Kelly Keller, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. And Dr. Williams George, will you begin, please?
I will, and good afternoon again. I'll be here for a little bit. I'll be here all week. Okay, so agenda item 23 includes the report and findings of the accreditation revisit conducted at Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District, which we'll call PVP because that's a big mouthful. So PVP is the lead program sponsor for the South Bay Teacher Induction Consortium. So that's a part of your context here. The original accreditation site visit was hosted in December of 2021. The report from that visit was presented to the Committee on Accreditation at its February 2022 meeting. The COA accepted the team recommendation of accreditation with major stipulations. As a part of that accreditation decision, the institution was required to submit quarterly reports documenting actions taken to address each stipulation and to host an accreditation revisit. The third quarterly report, which includes quarterly reports 1 and 2, was presented at the October 2022 COA meeting, and the revisit occurred on December 6th and 7th of 2022. The accreditation revisit focused solely on the stipulations from the December 2021 original site visit. Based on the evidence provided through documentation review and interviews, the team recommends all stipulations to be removed and Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District accreditation status be changed from accreditation with major stipulations to accreditation. While the team lead, Melissa Meets Hall, and our district representatives can add more detail, I would like to highlight a few of the significant changes made during this past year. The program leader, Samantha, established a permanent diversity, equity, and inclusion item in every advisory committee agenda, making it a clear priority for the district and the consortium. The communication among the districts in the Teacher Induction Consortium has both increased and been systematized, resulting in more consistency between the districts of the consortium. The Clear Administrative Services Credential program was closed when the district determined they could not provide the attention needed to provide the quality of program they wanted to offer. Throughout this process, both Samantha and Kelly have been willingly insightful and clear-focused in addressing the stipulations. I'll now turn the presentation over to Melissa, who will speak more about the report as well as the revisit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good to see everyone again. It is both an honor and a pleasure to contribute some information and to have been part of this with the Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District highlights. And Michelle certainly had the contextual information accurate. There's a level of embracing this notion of a growth mindset. And when leaders can truly embrace the fact that I just don't have it quite yet, and they can help their advisory group. And in this case, I'm speaking of the advisory group for a consortium, which represents assistant soups of HR, and that leader and that leadership team can help others broaden their understanding of what they're called to do. So for example, to be able to bring along everyone in their region to have conversations about how to diversify their teaching force, let's say, that is significant. So many good things to say about the way that leadership embraced this process. Again, as Michelle said, so when we really look at some of the stipulations, they were at the common standard level because we had kind of two structures, if you will. So we had the consortium, which was for the teacher induction, and then we had the administrative program, and that was newer to those, even to those advisory folks. It really hadn't been fully part of the consortium, and I think that really was some of the reps. So hopefully our words helped you understand what those finer points were, and then again, I would just commend the leadership, Samantha and Kelly, for just understanding and working tirelessly to make sure that folks had what they needed. You had a continuous improvement, some parts, you strengthen that. And I think that's what's led to this success. So I think rather than me saying anything more, I think I should let program leadership take it from here.
Good afternoon,
Thank you,
committee
Dr.
members.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Mrs. Keller cannot be here today. She's in negotiations. So, but I just want to say thank you to Dr. Williams-George and Dr. Metz-Hall for answering all of my questions. And there were many of them, and I appreciate your support and helping us improve our continuous improvement process, and also just becoming more systematized, which has taken a lot of the burden off of me being one person. So now the wealth has been spread across the consortium, which is evident with the advisory committee and everyone's participation, and developing an ILP review team that has some systems in place. There are definite markers, benchmarks that are in place. We are continuing to grow. We're looking at some lead mentors from each district, possibly paying them a little bit more. We're also looking at, really one of my immediate goals is to work with the credential analysts. I would love for all of us to go to that credential counselors and analysis of California conference together. I know because of COVID, they haven't really done that, but I really want to bring that group together to help share some of the responsibility of this program to continue to do that. And I'm looking at virtual recruitment fairs and suggesting that it's a lot more, I'm passing on a lot more information and sharing a lot, and our discussions are continuing to happen about diversity and inclusion of not only of our new teachers, but of everyone, as has been mentioned by Pleasanton. Many of their ideas, we echo those as well. We're also continuing to develop our special education pathway, make it more robust, and improving our colloquium process too. I know you've heard all of this, but looking at how we can really get candidates to see how maybe you're focused on one CSTP, but it touches so many other of the CSTPs. So if you're doing one thing, you are communicating with parents, you are assessing, you are working on all of those things, how they all fit together. And I feel like candidates are really starting to see that, and they are becoming more reflective.
Thank you. How about questions or comments from committee members? Okay, seeing none, this is an action item. Do I have a motion? Member Tchaikovsky.
Hi, I move that we accept this report regarding Palos Verdes Peninsula's status and record its new status to accreditation. That was kind of bungled, but I hope you understand what I mean.
I will take it. Thank you.
Accreditation.
So just to confirm, moving it from accreditation with major stipulations to accreditation.
Yes, one word without
Okay.
the other stuff.
Okay, do I have a second? Member Forbes. And we'll now do a roll call.
Jomaline Belatayo,
Aye.
Augustin Cervantes.
Aye.
Kathy Krisha,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And just like to say congratulations to Ms. Liddell and the PVP team. I think I said it right. And also thanks to Ms. Meets Hall and Ms. Williams George. Appreciate your work on this, and congratulations.
Yay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Take care.
We may not have the team lead yet for the next one, I think.
Okay.
Actually,
give us
now
1
we're a
second.
little ahead.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
and she had a little bit of a time issue, so she's available at 2. Is that what?
Yes. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
So we could take. just a
Okay,
5-minute
why don't we
break
take
if
a
you want.
5-minute stretch break right now? We'll resume at let's say 1:59.
Okay.
It's actually 6 minutes. And do we have everybody with us now? Okay. And do we have a quorum? Can we get started? Okay. All right, well, we'll move on to item 24, the report of the accreditation team to California State Polytechnic University, Humboldt. Consultant Dr. Michelle Williams George will present this item. She is joined by team lead Judith Silva and institutional representatives Chris Hopper, accreditation coordinator, Justice Ortega, associate dean, Shauna Young, dean, College of Professional Studies, and Jim Waglum, chair, School of Education. And Dr. Williams George, will you begin, please?
Good afternoon again. So agenda item includes the report and findings of the accreditation site visit conducted at California State Polytechnic University at Humboldt, Cal Poly Humboldt. Before I introduce the agenda item, I would like to acknowledge Libby Miller, who is currently on sabbatical and not able to join us today. Libby was our primary point person for the visit and the development of everything for the year before. And she and Chris worked very closely together to implement a large site visit that went very smoothly. So we're sorry she wasn't able to be here. The accreditation site visit occurred from November 13th through the 16th of 2022. And due to the continuing COVID-19 pandemic, it was conducted virtually, and interviews were conducted via technology. The site team consisted of 10 reviewers and was led by our very capable team lead, Judith Silva. The team reviewed 7 programs: preliminary multiple subject credential, preliminary single subject credential, the preliminary education specialist mild to moderate support needs and extensive support needs, preliminary administrative services credential, adapted physical education added authorization, school psychology, and school social work. The site visit team was dedicated to ensuring that all evidence was thoroughly reviewed and was extremely thoughtful when deliberating on the standards findings. With 7 programs and 10 reviewers, this was quite a lift. But after a comprehensive review of evidence, including institutional documents, data from institutional sources, as well as the accreditation data dashboard, and interviews with a variety of constituents, the team collaboratively confirmed findings on each of the common and program standards and determined a recommendation of accreditation with stipulations. Before I turn the presentation over to Judith Silva to talk more about the report as well as the site visit team findings, I would like to note that this was Judy's last site visit with the commission. She has moved up north to Monmouth, Oregon, where she is now the Associate Provost for Academic Effectiveness for Western Oregon University. We are sorry to see her go, but pleased to have had her expertise for these past many years. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Michelle. That was very gracious. I want to thank all the members of the team. This was a large team. We got to visit newly designated Cal Poly Humboldt virtually to look at their programs. And Cal Poly Humboldt is a really unique place. They serve a unique population. They serve a unique geographical area in California. And all of those contextual factors were part of the overall context of the visit and our findings. The team deliberated greatly on many factors related to this visit and in full understanding of some of the unique challenges that are posed by the geographical location of the institution. So I am proud of the work of this team, and I'm excited that this was my last site visit in California. So thank you for this opportunity. And thanks for the last 13 years of being on the BIR and doing all of the fun things that I've gotten to do with all of the amazing people in the commission that I've gotten to work with over those years. So thanks. So our overall findings of this visit were that all of the program standards were met across all of the programs that we looked at. And in Common Standard 1 was consistently met, which sort of creates the foundation for my optimism around the stipulations that we also identified for this visit. So the two of the common standards, Common Standard 3 and Common Standard 4, were met with concerns, and our stipulations are related specifically to the concerns that rose on those two common standards. The program standards were all found to be met, and that might seem weird relative to our findings on the common standards and the stipulations that were identified. But after much conversation and deliberation, the program reviewers really found that they were hearing things in interviews that rose to the level of common standards more than they were about specific program standards. So that kind of gives you a flavor for the findings and the stipulations. Shall I read the findings and stipulations, or are we good?
We have those in the report, but thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Ms. Silva, and congratulations on your new journey.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we invite the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the report. Remind you, this is not a time to dispute the team's report, but rather to provide any thoughts you had about the visit.
So I'd like to thank Chris Hopper. I was the accreditation coordinator for Cal Poly Humboldt. I've been working with the commission on and off for many years as a reviewer, so very pleased to support the work of Cal Poly Humboldt. I wanted to thank Michelle and Judith for their work. They were really outstanding representatives from the commission, and we really enjoyed visiting with the team. We appreciate the process, and we've already been working on a few changes to meet stipulations, and we look forward to updating this group in a few months. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I might
Any
share.
other
Oh, excuse me.
Please, go
Yes,
ahead.
I might share just a comment. I and mentioned this at the exit session, but I truly felt that the visit and everything leading up to it was a collaboration. It was a partnership with the evaluators, with the team, and that creates such a positive experience. And it feels supportive, and it feels like it's in the best interest of everyone involved. And so the motivation and the feelings of our folks in the various departments that make up our accreditation unit feel inspired and motivated versus anything that might have felt or could have been perceived as punitive. And that's so important. And this is normal and natural, that the kinds of things that were found, it's okay And it's a positive thing, and it's only going to continue to improve our programming and the outcomes for our students and then their students. So I'm just so grateful and so appreciative for that partnership and that collaboration. And thank you, Judy, truly for leading that and creating that kind of climate.
Thank you, Dean Young. We appreciate those comments. Any other institutional representatives wish to comment?
Just on the behalf of the School of Education and our faculty, gratitude to Judy and Michelle, and gratitude to Chris, Shauna, and Justice for their leadership through this process. So I'd also like to echo Michelle's sentiment of just gratitude from our school to Libby Miller, who exhibited such consistent leadership through the entire process. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. At this time, are there any comments or questions from our committee members? Okay, this is an action item. Do I have a motion? Member Cervantes? Okay, motion, second by Member Taylor. We'll do a roll call.
Jomaline Bolatayo.
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes.
Aye.
Kathy Krish. Kathy.
Oh, sorry, it was muted. Aye.
Katrina
Aye.
Chakowski. Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Teeler.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We'd just like to thank the team from Cal Poly Humboldt just for the way you received this information and the spirit of continuous improvement. And a big shout out to our lead Judith and to Dr. Williams George. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything, Judy. We're gonna miss you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to item 25. That's a report of the accreditation team to Teachers College of San Joaquin. Consultant William Hattrick and Rosemary Wren will present this item. They are joined by institutional representatives Gurley Hale, President, Michelle Bonavinak. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to tell me how to say that correctly. Bonavinak. Oh, you guys are in person. Yeah, I just realized that. We're so used to virtual. Crescentia Thomas, Director, and Katie Burns, Institutional Research Coordinator. And Mr. Hattrick, will you begin, please?
Not on, but keep myself muted here. Yes. Got it. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, committee members. The virtual site visit for Teachers College of San Joaquin took place December 4th through 7th for their educator preparation credential programs. The institutional leadership, program directors, faculty, and staff from Teachers College were very responsive to team requests for additional information related to their credential programs and accommodating other needs of the site visit team. In addition to interviews, the team reviewed evidence provided both before and during the site visit to determine findings on all common and program standards. Based on the fact that all common and program standards were fully met, the overall recommendation from the team is accreditation. I would like to thank our team members who worked diligently throughout the site visit, including our team lead, Stacy Tizer, who filled in at the last minute. She's unable to be here today, so I'll be sharing some additional information related to the institution and site visit. Teachers College of San Joaquin is located in Stockton with a satellite campus in Ceres. Approximately 800 candidates are enrolled across 12 credential and added authorization programs. For teacher preparation, the institution has two pathways, a residency program and the Teacher Intern Impact Program. As you will see highlighted throughout the report, positive feedback was received from candidates, employers, and faculty across programs throughout the interviews. I'll highlight one of the initiatives that the team found to be very successful for the institution. TCSJ has a student ambassador program where current candidates engage in recruitment and outreach efforts, including social media, blogs, and podcasts, encouraging potential candidates to consider the programs offered by TCSJ. Additionally, the level of support available from the program and institutional leadership was evidenced by multiple constituency groups. It was also evident that the Credential program strongly adhere to their new mission statement, which is, with an innovative spirit, we prepare and inspire educators to become empowered leaders who serve our diverse communities. Candidates confirmed that the coursework aligns with the real-life experiences of teaching in the classroom and that instructors provide useful resources for their teaching toolboxes. The team also reviewed the candidate completer surveys, which reflected a high degree of satisfaction with the programs, specifically that they felt the programs prepared them to be effective educators. After a thorough review of the evidence and completion of interviews with a wide range of constituency groups, the team confidently recommends full accreditation for Teachers College of San Joaquin.
Thank you, Mr. Hattrick. This time, I would like to invite our institutional representatives to briefly comment about the report. Remind you, this is not a time to dispute the team's report, but rather to provide any thoughts you had about the visit. You can turn on your, right there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for having us here today. On behalf of our institution, we would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to go through this process. We would like to specifically thank our lead, William Hattrick, for all the support that you've provided us through this process, as well as Rosemary Run. She was also assisting us in this process. We would like to also thank Stacy Tizer, our team lead. She did a great job of coordinating the efforts with us as well as the rest of the team. We were really appreciative of all the feedback and the guidance that we received during this process, and it was very much a great learning experience for us as an institution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, would you like to share?
I would just echo exactly what Gurley said. It was obviously a very heavy lift anytime you go through an accreditation program. And I was really skeptical, I must say, that one reviewer would be able to discern our two pathways, because we have pathways that are intern and residency that are nothing alike. And they did a great job of navigating that, and I think getting to the heart of what we do. And we're excited to keep moving forward. And this process, although it is a heavy lift, we're hoping it returns to in-person, because we are relationship driven at TCSJ and feel like the in-person touch is even better. But really appreciate all of the hard work that went into it by everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you both. About questions or comments from committee members? Member Tchaikovsky?
Well, thanks for coming. Yay, in person.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of impressed by the numbers that I saw on page 8 of the report in terms of the incredibly higher numbers of candidates you've got for next year. So when you talk about outreach efforts, recruiting, pitching your program so it attracts the kinds of people that my colleague over here was suggesting we must explicitly attract if we're going to diversify our teaching force, that's pretty impressive. So yay.
And I'm proud to say, I think our number one outreach tool is word of mouth. Our candidates tend to be our best promoters. So that's encouraging for us. And Katie Turner, who I don't know if she's on, but she heads the student ambassador program and does an incredible amount of outreach on our behalf as well. And she's fantastic.
Thank you. Member Morrison, Member Taylor, Member Cervantes.
Congratulations on a great report. And I was going to draw reference to that table as well, but I kind of zoomed in on the one at the bottom, because I teach in a high school where we have CTE teachers and we teach in an industry themed pathway. And then I saw that you went from 20 and completers to only 5 CTE credential teachers for the next intake. Is there a story behind that, or is that just kind of like a one-off thing, or does that tell us something now?
I think it has to do with a shift in our program. And so the way the numbers are reporting are just that way. So we had a number of candidates who completed. We used to be a January to December program, and we shifted to a July to June program. So I think that is actually just an anomaly due to that shift. Because actually our CTE numbers this year, I think, are close to 30 currently. We have a huge influx of CTEs. Yeah.
And you can also obviously have a clear credential in math and then be a CTE teacher as well. And at least at my school, there's a growing push for people to have dual credentials because then you're paid more.
And we are seeing a definite increase in the number of single subject credentialed teachers coming back to get their CTE credential. We have both, but a good chunk of them already have a credential.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Taylor.
So sticking with that table, I too was impressed by those numbers. What did you do differently? Because as a teacher preparation program, we're trying to recruit like crazy, and I want some of your special sauce.
I think the intern program sells itself in many ways because you can get paid and do the program simultaneously. We're also, unfortunately, in a region with a huge need for qualified teachers. And so there are a lot of internship availabilities in our region, unfortunately. Or, I mean, fortunate for us, but not fortunate necessarily that the schools have that many openings that they're trying to fill.
Thank you. Member Cervantes.
Yeah, no, wanted to commend you running 12 programs, including the CTE one, out of what I would call an unconventional setting. If we take stock of CSU producing a lot, and so I've in my years working in higher education, I've always loved the creativity that comes out of the work that y'all do. A couple thoughts. One that was shared about, folks having multiple credentials, and we talk intern as providing you the opportunity to teach, but I look at CT as also a way to attract, say, a pool of candidates that we maybe have never seen pursue teaching. I've talked to folks about how academic departments you can create sort of maybe an interest or a motivation to consider teaching if those programs are connected to, say, colleges of ed. And if you have that connective tissue, then you can sort of start to do this. And I feel like you can do that with CTE in creative ways. You can get people employed. You can get people teaching things that they enjoy, plus things that need to be taught, right? Another thing that I observed is that and it permeated the report, is that your mentors were very willing to be mentors. And I think that part cannot be stressed enough. We run into a lot of programs. So again, I call it the third tier. Is tier 1 is getting your credential. Tier 2 is clearing your credential. Tier 3 is the unwritten tier, which is how do you become a mentor or someone who imparts knowledge or tutelage to someone coming into a profession. And so again, back to your secret sauce. What might it be that gets folks to say, hey, you know what, I want a mentor for you all, and I'll gladly support someone in your program. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you for your question. So we have really great partnerships with our districts, both in the intern program and the residency program. So it is a collaborative effort in, actively recruiting, talking to our districts, and really working with them on recruiting people and selecting people who they would love to mirror and to replicate within their new teacher workforce. So it really is a close collaboration with our districts and our partners. We definitely rely on each other for that wraparound support for our interns and our residents. So I would say building that strong partnership is key. And then Michelle?
I was just going to add, in fact, we're in the process of developing what we call a teacher leadership certificate. And our hope is that once somebody goes through induction and wants to become a mentor, they could then get a certificate in it and really get more skills. So not just volunteer and naturally help, but really develop those skills and be able to progress. And that's actually being run by some of our colleagues that are online. They're in the midst of producing that certificate. So we're excited about that opportunity too, to continue to grow the pool.
Any member Tchaikovsky?
Just one more thing. I mean, I have to say that I think part of one ingredient in your secret sauce, perhaps, is your very clear celebration of the professionalism of teachers, not an empathetic show of concern for their overburdened state, but a celebration of their power and potential and viability within our system. And I think that that's, I was about to say how moths get drawn to the flame, but that's a terrible analogy, right? That's how you draw them in, right? I mean, you want to be part of a winning team, and you guys obviously are communicating that. You're not just about sort of compliance, you're about the heart of what it means to be a teacher leader. That's cool. Thank you.
Member Forbes?
So I guess the thing that I'm curious about is what sets you apart as a teacher's college, as opposed to, say, an intern program in a district office or a county office of education that has a collaborative partner from an institute of higher education, because you're unique in that way. So are there particular challenges to being a WASC accredited institution? Because it's very clear how situated you are in the real teaching and learning of your communities, right? And your instructors, your mentors, everybody.
One area that I feel that we really set ourselves apart, and not that this doesn't exist in other institutions and organizations, but we are really relationship driven. You know, we have you from recruitment all the way into your career, as well as even beyond that. We have a high number of former students who may have gone through one of our teaching pathways that come back to pursue their master's degree, as well as their maybe their admin credential, or to just do professional learning across the continuum in order to further their education, as well as move over on the pay scale. But during that journey, we are very people driven. So we take the time to get to know our students. Our students know all of us by name. They know who to reach out to if they need additional support or have questions. Michelle mentioned earlier our marketing, recruitment, and communications manager, Katie. She does such a great job of connecting opportunities to current and former students in terms of opportunities within our region. And I just think that even though we're small, we're really mighty. We have a lot of connections with not just our students, but with our faculty, as well as the community in which we serve. Did you want to speak as well, Michelle?
I was just going to say, one of your questions, I think, was what is one of the challenges. And I think because we are the only WASC accredited graduate school of education in a county office, WASC struggles to understand us a little bit. So sometimes it seems like a little bit of double the work to make ourselves understood, because we are super unique. We've had a lot of programs call and say, oh, we want to do that, and then they realize what it takes and say, oh, never mind. But it's worked well. It's like Burley said, being able to serve students through their master's degree and beyond is really a phenomenal opportunity for us.
And then Crescentia or Katie, would you like to speak as well in terms of what are some of the things that make us great, but also some barriers or challenges that we may face?
Sure, and I think that William and Rosemary have captured it in their report really well, that the ability for our completers, everyone that they interviewed, who spoke highly of that relationship focus. It is one of our core values. And so to Member Cervantes's question, how do we retain them and keep them as mentors, is almost natural, because they want to just stay. They want to be the instructors in front of the classrooms, they reach out to us to ask how can they help new teachers learn the way that they learned. So it's, you know, that's kind of almost the best. I think that's the statement, right? The best form of compliment is when you have replication. And so that's just something that speaks toward who we are, our motto, our mission. And I think, I'm not going to be able to say your name properly, but Member Katrina, I completely agree with everything that you said, that we are that flame. And so it just, people are drawn to us because of our passion for the work that we do internally.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. Part of my statement when I think of mentors coming from the community is the entire concept behind a grow your own model, a sustainable one. We are dealing with a teacher shortage all around. So to the extent that all of us in our respective programs can figure out a way to create that same mechanism, obviously gets more complicated in bigger cities for a variety of reasons, but and of course, whatever's there locally and regionally, I mean, it's part of what you do, but also what it looks like and what it feels like and so forth. We got to be thinking about sustainability, and it's for self-preservation of our sector and profession. Like, how do we keep people there, and how do we keep people imparting? We were having a conversation earlier that a lot of CTC's work is able to get done due to folks volunteering and coming together and doing this work and sharing their expertise. So, I mean, we got to start learning what we can in those nuggets of that can really be insightful to how we transform programs. Will help all of us evolve. And if we don't evolve, we're not going to be attracting people. We're not going to be able to sustain our programs in this profession the way we should be sustaining it, right? So kudos and thank you for leading by example.
Okay, any other comments from committee members? Okay, this is a action item. Do I have a motion from a committee member? Member Bolatayo.
I move that we accept this report with the recommendation of accreditation for Teachers College of San Joaquin.
And second, Member Tchaikovsky. Roll call, please.
Jomaline Bolatayo.
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes.
Aye.
Kathy Kresha.
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And congratulations. Thank you, President Hale. Thank you, Director Otavinek. Okay, got it right. I wanted one more chance on that one. Thank you for being with us in person. And thank you, Mr. Hattrick and the whole team. And thanks for those of you from San Joaquin Teachers College who joined us virtually. We appreciate your work. Okay, so we move on to item 26. And do we have everybody here?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I think they're all on.
Okay, item 26 is the update on the development and implementation of the PK3 Early Child Education ECE Specialist Instruction Credential. This item will be presented by Administrator Renee Marshall, Consultant Rosemary Wren, and Consultant Deborah Keeler. And Ms. Hickey, would you like to say a few words about this item before we begin?
Yeah. Yes, we do need to move Debbie Keeler over. Okay, great. Sorry, I was on the wrong tab. I just wanted to probably just reiterate what I said this morning. We just wanted you to have an opportunity to dig in a little bit and ask your questions and talk to staff about what is in this what's the expectations around this PK3 credential, what are the requirements, because it is different. And I think one of the big messages of this is not just the multiple subject credential redone. It is taking, the effort was to take the best of early childhood and the best of the multiple subjects and blend it for this particular age group. And so things are different, and we wanted you to have a chance to just kind of look through and think about it and talk about it, because as I said, these programs are going to come forward sometime this spring to you all. And so that you have that context before we get into the actual programs, and they're before you and you have to make decisions. So we have, I think, Rosemary, Debbie, and Renee Marshall all on, and they're going to take you through PowerPoint. I don't know if you guys want to stop in between certain sections and see if they have questions, but I'll let you guys handle it. So thank you, all three of you.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. If we could put the PowerPoint up, that'd be great.
I can't share my screen.
Oh, is it possible to make a Rosemary co-host?
Is that possible?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, it's so wonderful to be here together today. We, Rosemary, Debbie, and myself are so excited to just come together and have a chance to talk with you about this exciting opportunity we have in California. We have got quite a bit of detail to share, and so please feel free at any time to let us know if you have any questions. We will absolutely make sure that we include some time for questions at the end, but if at any time during the presentation you would like to ask a question, please feel free to unmute and join the conversation. So welcome again. My name is Renee Marshall, and I'm the newest administrator here at the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Proud to be here after serving in the community college district, or excuse me, community college system for the past 15 years. And so really excited to be in the commission and focusing specifically on our some of our earliest learners, some of our youngest children in the state, and those wonderful teachers that will be engaging with them as we expand transitional kindergarten. So today we've got quite a few areas that we're going to cover. You can see by the key points we have listed here. We're going to start off with a quick background and overview. Then we're going to get into what's new, because we want to make sure that we get the message across of these key components of this credential, some things that you maybe haven't seen before, but some really exciting and new spaces and new kind of ways that this will be done to advocate for those in the field and for the future teachers in early childhood education. So under the what's new, we're going to get into basic skills. We're going to get into subject matter, a little bit on program curricular design. We're going to talk a bit about clinical practice and TPAs, also getting into the three new standards. This is really exciting. The IPR process and the timeline. So let's go to the next slide and I will hand it over.
Thank you, Renee. My name is Debbie Keeler. I'm a consultant with the Professional Services Division and primarily working on this PK3 credential. So to begin with, we want to have just a reminder about a little bit about the background work that's been happening behind the scenes in early childhood education. In 2020, the state adopted the California Master Plan for Early Learning and Care, which calls for the development of that competency-based preparation and licensure system for the field of early childhood education, with the recommendation of developing a PK through 3 credential. And then in 2021-22, we moved that work forward and repurposed the ECE specialist credential. But first of all, we established the ECE credentialing work group that was made up of professionals across the state in the field of early childhood and elementary education. That work group worked very diligently for about 5 months to work on recommendations that were presented to the commission regarding the multiple pathways and options for meeting the proposed requirements. And then in 2022 was the first year of the implementation of Universal Transitional Kindergarten, known as UTK, that instituted a program of expanding transitional kindergarten to serve all 4-year-old children by 2026, and that being a free program for those families that chose to attend. Next slide, please. And looking at the credentialing structure, we know that as we have worked on it and the commission has approved it, it's intended to meet the unprecedented need, a need of 7,000 to 16,000 new TK teachers. Wow. These TK teachers our hope is that they would be qualified in early childhood education with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to provide developmentally appropriate learning opportunities for all young children. We also want to be able to, through this credential, prepare teachers that represent that diverse workforce, reflecting the children and families that they already serve in the pre-K sector up to grades 3. And looking at also this credential is intended to provide a bridge and accelerated pathways for those with the multiple subject credential as well as those who hold a child development teaching permit that have a bachelor's degree, to be able to earn this credential and begin serving in these transitional kindergarten settings as quickly as possible, as we know there is a great need as this is rolling out over the next 3 years. And then also to provide an option to multiple subject credential holders for meeting those apportionment requirements, EC 48,000, and that is established by the California Department of Education for serving in transitional kindergarten assignments that requires one of 3 different options that the LEA can select to be able to meet this requirement. I'll pass it over to Rosemary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosemary Wren, and I'm a relatively new consultant with the Commission. And I come to you from the field of teacher preparation. So I've had a lot of these, I've fallen into working on this credential because it's something that I had been exploring a great deal with my students and colleagues prior to this. So some of the new things that you're going to see and questions you might have are that there's not a standalone basic skills requirement for this credential. Candidates are required to possess a bachelor's degree or higher from a regionally accredited institution of education for this credential. And so the CBEST and the other basic skills requirements do not apply for this credential. So they just need that undergraduate degree. And the subject matter requirements these are probably going to be really different for a lot of folks who are used to looking at teacher preparation programs, because the subject matter for this credential is focused on the understanding of child development in contrast to the focus of content areas that we've seen in the multiple subject and single subject credentials. There are 2 ways that candidates can meet these requirements. The first is to have a bachelor's or higher degree from a regionally accredited institution of higher ed with a degree major in the field of child development or early childhood education. So right now, that is how they can meet the subject matter requirement. And in this case, they would also be meeting the basic skills requirement as it is. The other way that folks can meet the subject matter requirement is to complete 24 semester units or the equivalent in quarter units of non-remedial degree applicable coursework at a regionally accredited institution of higher education in early childhood education and or child development. There is no set list of courses that are required. It's any 24 units of early childhood education or child development. But they must be degree applicable courses. They can't be professional development. And there is not a CSET for this credential. And I'll hand it off to Debbie. Oh, no, this is mine too, sorry. And so for folks who already hold a clear multiple subject teaching credential with the English Learner Authorization, they can add this credential. We've been hearing about people doubling up on credentials. And so some of the benefits for a person who already holds a multiple subject credential might be that it will help them meet the apportionment requirements throughout that are held throughout the state at many different school districts. And these candidates, if they already hold their clear credential and have completed all the requirements, they will apply directly to the commission for their credential. And they are not required to complete any additional clinical practice or teacher performance assessments. And now I'll hand it over to Debbie.
Thank you, Rosemary. And looking at the program curricular design, we are encouraging program sponsors to intentionally design their programs to meet the specific new criteria of the credential, rather than attempting to retrofit existing preliminary multiple subject programs that might not be specific to this age range of three years of age to 3rd grade. So this gives program sponsors the opportunity to build new pathways to teaching looking at the field of child development and early childhood education in relationship to those majors out at the IHE. So programs are really encouraged to meet the needs of students within this age range. Next slide, please. Also, we're encouraging programs to focus coursework and clinical practice on specific child development, early literacy and math instruction, play, social emotional learning, and developmentally appropriate practices in relationship to individual pedagogy regarding these areas. And designing culturally sustaining curriculum spaces that support all children, regardless of what language they speak at home or at school, to help children become literate, and also cultural ways of knowing and being known within the classroom setting. Programs are also encouraged to provide a focus on the whole child, a lot of emphasis on whole child education in our field right now, and early childhood, I think, does a great job with that and looking at all areas of a child's development, centering on children's funds of knowledge and being able to validate those communities in which the children reside and those family relationships, and ensuring that there are great connections with families at home. Next slide, please.
All right, and so this is where we get into some really some more of the technical changes that are coming into place with this credential. The clinical practice for this, for the candidates need to complete, is 600 hours. However, in this program, they will need to have two distinct settings. So they will need at least 200 hours in a PK or TK situation, and then at least one placement of 200 hours in a kindergarten through third grade. So the pre-K is considered ages 3 to 5 in this situation. This requirement is intentional to ensure that candidates have the opportunity to work with children spanning the ages the credential covers. And staff is working on a guide for programs as they design their clinical practice, and it's currently in its final revisions and will be available very soon. As Debbie mentioned earlier, this credential offers a bridge for early childhood professionals in the form of credit towards their clinical practice. This is very specific, and the candidates, in order to earn credit for their clinical practice, they must meet two criteria. One is that they must hold a child development permit at the teacher level or higher and show 6 years of full-time satisfactory teaching. And this has to be verified by their site. So those folks will be eligible for an automatic 200 hours credit towards their clinical practice. Programs also have the option of granting additional credit for clinical practice up to another 200 hours. And we are requiring that they establish a process for this and make it readily available to candidates, along with including it in their program proposals. So we want to make sure that candidates know upfront what the process is. As far as the teacher performance assessment, right now, initially, they will need to use the multiple subject TPA in a TK through a third grade. There is a specific PK3 TPA under development, and it should be fully ready by September of 2025. And until then, we'll need to use the multiple subject TPA. And this is going to have implications for programs when they're thinking about clinical practice placement. As someone who's been involved in that very, very closely, and there are a lot of logistics involved with that. So programs need to be thinking about that ahead of time and ensuring that their candidates will be able to complete their TPA during their clinical practice. And this is the current timeline for development of that TPA. This program has 9 program standards, and most of them are similar to what you're familiar with in the multiple subject programs. We do have 3 new standards that we've highlighted here for you, and we'll go into a little bit more detail in just a moment. Right now, staff is conducting webinars and developing evidence guides on these specific standards in order to provide programs with resources for addressing these in their proposals. Guidance will also be available on the PK3 Credential webpage. This program has 8 teacher performance expectation domains, and the first 6 are very similar to the multiple subject TPEs, and you'll notice that the 2 new TPEs align directly with 2 of our new standards. Program Standard 4 does not have a direct TPE counterpart. Instead, programs will need to ensure that candidates are learning to develop equitable, inclusive, and just learning spaces throughout and across their coursework and clinical practice. So Standard 4 is our first new standard, and it's been called the DEI standard or the EID standard. And I just hope we can view it as a standard that will help future and current educators create learning opportunities where all children can thrive. Research studies overwhelmingly show that children are more equipped and likely to engage in academic challenges and to persist in school settings where they feel they belong and where they matter. And this standard underscores California's commitment to our children by naming the skills teachers need to create inclusive and just learning spaces, and helps them to develop a lens through which they can design their future learning spaces. While the majority of California's students are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, or other people of color, the majority of our teachers remain white, and they bring their ways of knowing and being into the classroom. And this means that the majority of our children are often not seeing their identities, languages, cultures, communities, and other ways of knowing and being validated in their classrooms. So based on this evidence, this standard calls on programs to provide candidates the opportunities to inquire into, reflect on, and address their own attitudes and understandings relating to power and privilege across a number of domains. And as I said, this standard is going to help candidates better serve all children because it calls for programs to provide practice in assets-based pedagogy, where children's abilities and behaviors are accepted and validated as developmentally and culturally appropriate and contribute to their learning community. This means guiding candidates to value children's cultures, communities, beliefs, and languages, and to learn ways to create culturally sustaining learning environments. Now, there's not a standalone TPE for this standard, like I said, and instead programs will weave these concepts and practices through the coursework and clinical practice. And we will be sharing a guidance document for that during our webinar next week, and then it will also be available to programs throughout the process. And move on to Debbie.
All right, thank you. Standard 7 focuses on mathematics. This is a new standard for this credential and actually for any holding current credential. This standard in TPE directly addresses the implementation, literacy, not mathematics, I apologize. This is a new standard though across all of the credential programs. It addresses the implementation of SB 488, includes detailed expectations for program sponsors and for individual teacher candidates. So this standard also encompasses both coursework and supervised field experiences for the study of effective means of teaching literacy in the classroom to young children across all the content areas, and that is emphasized throughout the standard. So the resources that this standard is based on is the State Board Education adopted English Language Arts, ELA, and literacy standards. Also the English Language Development standards, the ELA and the ELD frameworks that are associated with that, including the cross-cutting themes that are included in the frameworks of foundational skills, meaning making, language development, effective expression, and content knowledge. In addition, the preschool learning foundations, which are the state standards for children 3 to 5, and the associated preschool curriculum frameworks. Standard 7 also calls on programs to ensure that they are grounded in literacy instruction, looking at both asset-based pedagogies and universal design for learning, UDL focus. And the reason for this is it's really felt strongly that this will help prepare candidates to provide effective literacy instruction that's comprehensive, it's systematic, it's organized, it's culturally and linguistically sustaining based on evidence, and it's responsive to the children's specific age, grade, and prior literacy development. Standard 7 also asks that programs demonstrate that they provide a systematic literacy instruction that follows specific elements of the California Comprehensive State Literacy Plan that is in place, and that is detailed in the PK3 Credential Handbook that's on our PK3 Credential webpage. This standard also requires programs to incorporate, in addition, the California Dyslexia Guidelines through both coursework and clinical practice. All right, so now we get to standard 8, which is math. And this is a new standard and also new TPEs. The idea is for the math standard to be able to cultivate children's conceptual understanding of math by building those positive relationships with children, recognizing that children come to us with prior math knowledge already up to 3 years of age. There's so much math that children have learned at that age. And so it's taking that knowledge and drawing on it and extending that knowledge in relationship to additional information and additional knowledge of math experiences. We know that, again, children come with various capabilities when it comes to math, and we want to guide children to develop that strong foundational mathematical understanding and give them an opportunity in the classroom to practice using a variety of tools and strategies that are developmentally appropriate to solve problems and be able for them to develop language around coming up with solutions, as well as explaining their thinking in relationship to those activities. And also what's so important is that they are able to relate math learning to their own experiences in life, whether at home or whether at school. Also to differentiate instruction and learning activities to meet the needs of children where they are at the time that they enter into the classroom and help them gain additional knowledge, skills, and abilities in their mathematical thinking process. So the goal of the math standard is to prepare candidates to facilitate children's learning in all the critical strands that are mentioned in the learning foundations, which include numbers and operations, include counting and cardinality, mathematical thinking and understanding relationships, algebra and functions, measurement and data analysis, and geometry. So we would like programs to ensure candidates would be able to learn and practice incorporating those mathematical thinking processes in various modalities, including speaking, language, gestures, movement, writing, and other means of expressing learning, to ensure that all children, including children with disabilities and mono and multilingual learners, can have access to and can cultivate their understanding at the developmental level where children are currently.
All right, and I think one thing we haven't said much in this presentation is that a lot of these learning experiences are going to be based on play and involve just the natural observations and interactions that children have around the content that they're exploring when they're in a school setting. We are working really diligently on refining the IPR process for this credential. We will be holding a webinar next Friday to share with prospective programs the process. We're hoping and we're asking actually that each program sponsor that's proposing a pre-K3 program includes at least one recommendation for a reviewer with expertise in ECE. Because it's imperative that these programs be reviewed through that lens. And then also, if you have had time to explore standard and TPE 7, you'll see that it's particularly detailed and very specific. And so we're hoping to incorporate a reviewer dedicated to the literacy standard and expectations so that we can again ensure that we are addressing all of the elements of those standards, that programs are addressing those standards. The timeline for where we are with the putting this in place is that the regulatory packet is being put together to be submitted. We have informational webinars for potential programs and for you all, if you're interested. Next Thursday and Friday, on Thursday, we'll be addressing the math and the diversity standard. We already had one webinar on the literacy standard, so that's already posted on our webpage. We will be reviewing the first round of proposals on March 16th and 17th. And fall 2023 is when our first accredited PK3 ECE specialist instruction credential programs will begin.
Rosemary just shared these upcoming webinars, and we're so excited just to open up spaces for communication, keeping it clear and consistent as much as possible, but also to make sure that we are hearing from the field. So in addition to the webinars and the webinar recordings that we have listed here, we have upcoming office hours. On Monday, we have, oh, sorry, I jumped ahead there. On Monday, and the first Monday in February, we are creating and opening up our first community circle, which will be a space for people to come in and have discussion about what they learned at the webinars. If there's any questions or any clarifications or any topics that need to be lifted, that will be a space for it. We are also hoping that to remind everybody to be subscribed to the PSD news and the ECE news. We're also consistently sharing the ECE mailbox that we have, and we check that every day and are trying to be responsive to people in our throughout the state that are asking questions about the PK3 credential. And so really trying to keep that consistent communication and communication going just as much as possible. With there's so many different interest holders related to this that we want to make sure that we are open and available to provide the information needed across the state. Sorry, I jumped on that. Thank you, Rosemary. Sorry about that.
And I'm having cursor trouble, so I can't change. I can change the slide, but that's about it right now. So, so I think that was it.
That's it. So we're going to wrap with that there. See if anybody has any questions or if there's any clarification needed by anybody who's on COA. And we really appreciate having the opportunity to talk with you for a little bit today about PK3 and what's going on with this new early childhood education credential, and what to anticipate for the next quite a few years within the Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
I just wanted to also say before we questions on the IPR process, because as I explained earlier, we're doing this sort of parallel with the regulatory process. We have probably put, I don't know, 10 caveats as people submit their documentation that says, I understand you may be coming back to ask for changes depending on what happens with the Office of Administrative Law. So we're trying to be as expeditious as we can on our end, knowing that the Office of Administrative Law might ask for some changes, and then we'd have to go back to you all or to all the program proposals and say, hey, this one piece has to change because of, so we're doing the best we can, but we put a lot of caveats in there so that people understand when they propose that there are some ifs still here in this process.
Also, I just want to be clear, especially I know there's a lot of people from the field listening today, that we are not yet accepting program proposals.
That's right.
because we have some specific evidence guidance that still needs to be put in place and some other things like that. So if you're out there and you're thinking, they're ready, we're not ready yet.
We're getting
really, really soon.
getting
And we will announce it with, big fanfare when we're ready to start accepting proposals.
Right. But the standards are out there, they're posted, so people can start thinking about what their program design looks like and can start working on it.
We're also really trying hard to get these webinars posted on the CTC PK3 website as quickly as possible. So like, for instance, the webinar that took place last week, I think it was up within 24 hours with all the added resources that were shared. And so really trying to make sure if somebody can't be there live, we're going to make sure we get the information to them. And it's been great with all the different information webinar. The information webinar that we held had about 400 people in attendance at the end of 2022. And then this most recent literacy webinar had, I believe it was I think we started about 170, 180. And so, a lot of people interested and a lot of people engaging in conversations.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Marshall, Keeler, and Ms. Wren for the detailed report. Do we have other questions or comments? Member Hallis, and then Member Taylor, and then Member Forbes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all this exciting work. I was just wondering, I know programs might be interested in offering intern routes. Could you maybe talk about some benefits and challenges to that for this credential?
I'm going to open it up to see if Rosemary or Debbie would like to take that. If not, I'm happy to, but if either one of you would like to.
The one big challenge, and I'm sorry, my cursor is completely died and I can't see any of you right now, but I can't get onto that screen. One of the things that is a challenge with the intern situation is going to be the clinical practice piece, because folks will need to complete at least 200 hours in each of the age groups. And so that's going to be something that programs will need to take into consideration as they're designing that. But that's my part on the intern. I don't know if Debbie or Renee has more to add on that.
Debbie, before I jump in, would you like to say anything?
No, I think Rosemary brings up a really good point about institutions and how they're going to provide opportunities for both those pieces. So we're already kind of talking about ways in which they can build partnerships, with programs in the field, within those two bucket groups in the public and private sector. So.
One thing to note too is the current ECE workforce in California is highly skilled and qualified. Over 50% of current ECE providers already have a bachelor's degree. And that's coming out of the Berkeley Children's Forum group, that data piece. And it's just, so it's really important to have opportunities for residencies and internships and these different models, especially as we're looking at the model where there will be 2 people in the classroom in order to keep the ratios down in those TK classrooms. And so that's a perfect example of, or a perfect place where you might have your fully credentialed teacher alongside another teacher. Maybe they've already got their bachelor's degree. Maybe they, you want to make sure that they are earning and learning as much as possible. And so we are looking at all of the various, it's definitely, Mr. Hallis, it's definitely a complex issue. And that's one of the reasons why we're really trying to have a lot of different open spaces. So as there's challenges and barriers that are brought to our attention, by all means, we're trying to lay this out and create this in a way to bring down barriers, to make this a seamless path if possible. I want to use that word, but I caution with it because I also don't want to, be a Pollyanna in terms of the situation. So we want to make sure though that we're looking at all these different models. Another thing too that I want to share with you is also looking at dual enrollment, looking at that as a pathway, looking at teachers who are identifying, 50% of California's teachers know by 5 years old that they want to be a teacher. And then the other 50% approximately find out later on in life. And so why not, kind of work that into the model, having all these different pathways, all these different options, and really uplifting different examples in terms of, how people are engaging in this work. And I don't want to say best practices. I want to say promising practices. So uplifting promising practices, encouraging partnerships and relationships. We're doing a lot of building with that right now. Actually, just yesterday, we hosted a face-to-face meeting in the Los Angeles region to try to help bring people together and to make sure that, again, going with that clear, consistent communication. So we are definitely tracking residencies and internships and all the different possibilities. And then as different opportunities come up from whatever sources that we can find out, Department of Education has been great with their compendium on different financial resources for groups or individuals that are looking to go into this. And so we want to make sure we're sharing those resources as well.
Briefly to your question, in the limited amount of time that I spent working in this before we got all these great ECE experts on staff, the funding for preschool programs is incredibly complex. I'm not saying for the K-12 or the TK-12 folks in the room that isn't also, but it's different. It's just different, and there's a lot we don't know about it yet, and that may have an effect on how an intern may or may not get placed, because they've got these teacher to student ratios that are a lot different than what we see in the TK-12 programs.
Thank you. We had member Taylor, I think, was next, and then Forbes, and then Volatile, then Cervantes.
We heard earlier that there's a lot of grant money. Is any of it going towards
Where's David? David, grant money for the PK3 integrated, I believe, is available for this effort. Right now, I don't think the residencies are. I could be misspeaking, so I'm going to let David talk.
Yes, you got it exactly right, Cheryl. So the integrated undergraduate capacity grants to build new programs, that money can be used for building PK3 programs. The RFAs are due on February 13th. So if you want to do that, you need to be working on that right now. Residency grants require that the LEA work with an IHE that has an approved program. So once we have approved programs for PK3, then they'll be eligible for residency grants.
Is there any plan to expand that like to non-integrated? We're applying for the integrated, but there's an opposition within a university towards integrated programs, and politically it'd be a whole lot easier if we could just go for a standalone credential, but developing these programs is ridiculously expensive.
So certainly you can use whatever you develop from your integrated program in a non-integrated program, but state statute does not allow us to award grants for program development that is not part of an integrated program.
If you get a grant for program development and then you fall foul of internal politics at the academic senate, and you spent 2 years approving this and it doesn't pass muster at the academic senate, do you have to give the money back? There are penalties, or how does that work?
That's a good question. I know that there were some integrated grants before my time, so back like 2016, 17.
Yeah.
No. Okay. The answer is no.
The answer is no. In what way?
Yeah, so
sorry, I didn't use my microphone. We're going to bring our grants administrator in real quick.
Well, and maybe it's answered by Kara there. The question I had is, I know one of the pots of money was expansion of integrated programs, and so maybe the question I'm asking is, what constitutes expansion? Because is it, say you decide to include an ECE option, something that didn't exist, right, onto a frame of call it a trunk of an undergraduate, an ITEP program, right? And then you just build the little branch afterwards. Different from what I want to ask later, but I wonder if this is
Kara can
how subjective.
Yeah, answer these better than I can.
I don't want to assume anything, because I think these questions, when we take it back to faculty, those are the questions that they're asking. Like, can I do this? Can I not do this?
I don't want to imply that I'm assuming there's going to be a problem. I'm actually very confident that we're going to get this approved and it's going to go through. But in the back of my mind, the question about, well, I don't control all the variables here. I got to convince an awful lot of people. And what if I can't? Oh, yeah.
Hi, friends. So I couldn't see who was speaking. But
Member
I will
Taylor
say
and Member
relative to
Cervantes.
integrated grants for planning grants, they are planning grants. And part of the challenge of planning grants is maybe you plan and maybe it for whatever reason, it doesn't come forward. And that's okay. We're not taking any money back because there was some sort of, not an ability to actually implement the program. So for the planning grants, integrated, that's fine. Same thing with teacher residency capacity grants. Okay. I spoke this morning about partnerships being that key piece to the success of teacher residency programs. And so capacity grants are all about determining to what degree we can form this partnership with, between LEA and IHE. And most often it's a success and the program's launch. And on occasion, we find out we're just not positioned to be able to do that. So relative to planning grants, we will not be coming after the money to return it.
And Kara, what about the ITIP expansion grants? I think we alluded to the ones that rolled out 2016 and say you wanted to increment on that. How do those look?
Right. So can you repeat your whole question? Because I was being brought in and I came in like at the last of your question. So I apologize.
Oh, yeah. So one of the, when we were on my campus, we hosted a meeting where faculty members were reviewing the ITEP grants, and one of them was an expansion grant. And a campus like mine received money back in 2016-17. And so it was a little nebulous to them if what they wanted to propose was considered expansion. And one of the conversations that came out of it was, what if to our ITEP we added an ECE credential completion program plan? And it sounded pretty straightforward to me, but I think the bears asking, is expansion like sort of subjectively defined? Is anything considered expansion? What does fall under the definition for the sake of the grant? Yeah.
Indeed. I think we have some FAQs posted relative to this, but I will also say that in my humble opinion, expansion is expanding that which you have already shown success around. Okay. In fact, there's some questions in the RFA to talk about, where does the expansion come from? Now, ECE is a different beast because there's nothing to expand to yet because there's no approved program. David was correct in saying that the ITEP planning grants are perfectly positioned for the ECE planning, work around the ECE, okay, credential. But the implementing or expanding the an ECE program wouldn't apply because there's no approved.
And that's exactly the answer
Yeah.
I was looking for,
Yeah.
considering that folks were seeing expanding an option onto an existing program, if that makes sense. So
Right.
this clarifies it. So thank you.
Now, with that said, if a multiple subject program and a single subject program work very closely together, and multiple subject have the ITEP and single subject wants to expand upon that because they are all connected, great. But again, we don't have any approved programs yet for ECE, and so it would be very challenging to put any of those in any sort of expansion or implementation grant.
Thank you for clarifying that. And I think my comment to all this is, Renee, we know this from folks who have completed ITEPs in the past, is many of them have gone on to complete the multiple subject credential who were actually very much interested in an ECE credential, right? And so I'm thinking if maybe the consultants and committee that just presented could perhaps share some thoughts, ideas on just how to be innovative so that we can validate the prior preparation and learning while then stacking in, ECE preparation, because you're going to have a lot of people who fall under this bucket who are working professionals.
And I would like to remind us that we have member Forbes and Balatayo also waiting.
Okay, thank you. So my question has to do with overlap. So I'm going away from grants, but I'm particularly well, I want to start by saying I'm very excited by this. I think it's the best direction I've heard from a very long time. But I'm also concerned about the overlap and the potential intersection with existing K-6 multiple subject credentials. So for example, if I'm a third grade teacher and I've gotten a multiple subject credential and I'm assigned to teach third grade, and then there's a third grade teacher in the room next to me who's had a K-3 credential, I think our preparation will overlap in many ways. Our basic skills requirements and our content requirements will not overlap. So in fact, I can already see some very upset and concerned people, somewhat building upon what Member Cervantes said, who went through the whole multiple subjects preparation, took all the CSETs or got all the content and really wanted to do the ECE route, but there wasn't one, right? So I was just kind of curious about, to me, the better direction would not be to multiple subjectize the P3, but to P3, the multiple and single subject, dare I say it, to have a little bit different look at how we, I think the legislature has already given us a lot better latitude to make decisions about content knowledge, for example, right? With using majors, with using subject matter programs in addition to the CSETs, and now expanding that into the multiple subjects arena as well with the most recent guidelines that have really been very helpful.
And I would say that, probably the biggest difference between a PK3 program and a multiple subject should be the PK3 is much more focused on developmentally appropriate practices and really thinking through what things should look like at each grade level, rather than, traditionally, schools will often try to bring things from first grade down to kindergarten things down to TK. So it's really looking at what is developmentally appropriate.
No, and I'm very much down with that, but I'm also, so I'm, very, but I am a little bit concerned about the potential sort of operationalization of all of this, right? As a program sponsor, how do we do this so that we don't have unlimited resources to have different kinds of cohorts focusing on different kinds of things, right? So I would say that we'll be learning from our early childhood colleagues to make our K-3 preparation even more developmental than it already is pretty developmental, I hope, but even more so. But I just was curious if there's, on the political horizon, is there any possible way in which this might leverage some kind of change in the environment around regulations for the other grades?
I think,
I'm curious.
I think there's a possibility with basic skills. I think there's an option there. I mean, someone has a baccalaureate degree, isn't that enough of a demonstration of basic skills?
If it's enough for P3, which to me is the most important set of grades, it should be enough for teaching K-12.
That's where I see the most likelihood for change.
Okay.
I do want to mention that there's also some development of crosswalks right now to support kind of like the translation of the two coming together. I'm somebody who's been in EDU for many years, but then I also served ECE. And so I've seen almost like these two worlds during the last, 25 years of my career. And so it's great though, because I'm literally working with a group of people right now where we're creating a terminology crosswalk. What is it? Okay, this is what it says in early childhood. So what is that? What's the same acronym that we've got in K-12 education? It might look different, but a lot of it is foundationally the same. Another thing I want to point out too, I think in addition to pushing up child development as an opportunity, I think right now, and just developmental practice, I think right now students are in a social emotional learning crisis. Many students are. And so one of the great things about early childhood education is it's so based in social emotional learning and social emotional care, holistic well-being of the whole child. That's another component that I see promise in terms of what could push up, what tenets from there could push up throughout the whole system to really developmentalize the system in a way so kids can be whole at all ages. We can be looking holistically at people, from the entire cradle to career, honestly, whatever part of the system we're looking at developmentally, we don't want them to be stagnant. And so we want to help, very Vygotskian, but like kind of push them to the next part of their development.
Well, and just to finish that, first of all, I wanted to express appreciation for some of those crosswalks. I think at the most recent webinar, there was a crosswalk between the TPEs, right, for K3 and K6 or multiple subjects. It was super helpful. That really helped me to understand it a lot better from an operational point of view. But I think at the same time we want to, or this is my opinion, is at the same time we want to have a very much more developmental and learner-centered focus for all of our credential areas. We also don't want to let go of content-specific pedagogy, because I think that's been an important innovation in California that we don't want to let go of. And so I'm glad to see that there's appropriate types of attention to content as well with these two standards for literacy and math. So
thank you for mentioning the literacy crosswalk. Also, I just want to give a shout out. The amount of time that goes into some of the pieces of work, behind the scenes, it's just extraordinary. And so for you to shout that out, just great appreciation. Thank you for saying something. Thank you.
Member Bolatayo.
A lot of has been answered, by committee members Forbes' question, but I just wanted to thank you. My son will be a direct recipient of this endeavor. He's qualified for TK next year, so thank you. I really appreciate these efforts, and also I think it's a great opportunity for preschool teachers to earn more opportunities for better pay, right? And I think this will then hopefully encourage more teachers and more staff at our districts to think about becoming a TK teacher as well. So I really I applaud your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Cervantes, I believe you were next, and then Member Tchaikovsky. I may have got the order wrong now, but
no, and I apologize. I think I jumped the gun because I was already on the mic. Yeah, no, I was thinking about how to back to what Member Forbes was talking about, the fact that we have limited resources, that our students are taking particular courses, and the ecology of how preparation programs tend to work. And so I wonder, what are the points, if any, of creativity, of innovation to take prior learning and to take stock of where people are working and the experiences they've had, in order to help guide, I think, and nudge not only colleges of ed, but anybody who's going to be preparing a future ECE credentialed individual to not create additional roadblocks. Again, back to the shortage, the harder it is to get through, the easier it is to lose people. I mean, so yeah, it's on that same sort of vein.
Member Tchaikovsky.
Well, as I was looking at those slides, I thought, oh my God, like being surrounded by a group of 4-year-olds. How many of us in here could do that? I mean, it might be fun to try, right? Super cool. I mean, it's just like astounding. And I just wanted to say that one of the words that came out through the slides that just sticks in my mind is play. I think we have lost that. The whole CST mania frenzy for testing in a certain terrible, superficial way rolled us back a long time. I mean, maybe that's just my opinion, but the kinds of assessments that we rely on now are so much more progressive and better than they were, 15 years ago. I think it's going to be important when we consider clinical practice for these people that we help them consider that transition between 3 and 4 as the mindset of TK3 teachers changes to traditional, maybe 1 through 6 kind of people. There seems like there could be like a chasm in terms of philosophy and thinking. So that could be negative. It could negatively affect these people who are coming in with this mindset, like you said, developmental mindset, you know, cradle to career kind of thing. I'm not sure that that idea is dominant post third grade. I haven't taught elementary school, but based on, you know, my experiences, I think we have to be really careful that what we nurture here with this amazing thing doesn't get smacked down further on down the road. So again, I mean, we're years away from that, but if we can anticipate the potential institutional challenges facing these people, we can help to break them down. And then we also need to think about like the school buildings where these people will likely do their work. Maybe they'll work in self-contained TK3 settings that might have been preschools, but I'm imagining a lot of local LEAs and other organizations will simply add classrooms or trailers, and it'll just become a prerequisite to fourth grade or something. So we have to think about how it fits within the practical reality of how people will be earning money. So, I mean, that's just as important as what we put into these people is their interface with the output.
I think part of it too
Cool,
also
though.
goes to leadership understanding what it means for developmentally appropriate practice. What does play mean? People think like play is just this frivolous piece of life. It's not. It can be really intentional. It can be a teaching engine. And here's the thing though, if you have staff that are coming from these, in a sense, different worlds and coming together, if that leadership team doesn't have that umbrella of understanding, there is much potential for conflict. You're right. And I mean leadership, not just the leadership in the LEAs and the schools, but I'm even saying in our teacher preparation programs and higher education and leadership throughout education. Systems need to understand what's going on, the relevancy of it and the importance of it. I think then we will see more cooperation and more like creating just like a new sense of what that school community is going to look like when suddenly there's 4-year-olds that are there and, you know, more 4-year-olds and more TK teachers, in addition to this group of people. I would have been a PK3 credential candidate, guaranteed. I loved when I taught 4th and 5th grade, but I wanted to specialize in 4 and 5-year-olds. And so I just see it as being a really great opportunity. It is absolutely complex, and we will continue spaces for communication and like the moment we hear things in the field, we are actively working around like behind the scenes. Anytime something comes up, something came up just in LA yesterday, we're right on it today. So, you know, you're trying your best to see the entire picture, but it's a new picture. So how do you anticipate everything? So thank you so much for bringing that up though. And it's great when you are seeing groups that are doing leadership boot camps and what they're finding to be effective in terms of how do they get everybody on board in order to move forward.
Yeah, and this credential also has a lot of emphasis on critical learning and critical thinking and engaging and addressing things and hopefully training up these or providing them the guidance, these candidates the guidance so that they feel empowered to address issues that they see going awry, in particular in relation to equity and diversity and social justice. So our administrators are going to need to be, we were talking about this the other day, they're going to need to be prepared for these new teachers to call some things out or in that they see. And hopefully by doing that, I would think that we give these new teachers more leadership, or they are earning more leadership in their environment, and then they can also influence folks who've been around for a while. And, you know, I think this credential also reflects a difference in the way that we adopt knowledge these days. I mean, when I got my teaching credential in the late 80s, we did not have the internet. I had to go to the library to put lessons together, right? And now we have access to information a lot more readily. And so preparing these future teachers to understand how to take a big idea and break it down developmentally appropriate. Perhaps this also is reflecting that, you know, the way we consume and acquire knowledge these days.
Yeah, in a way.
And Renee,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
In a way, I think the way has been prepared. I think with the initiatives of whole child education and purposeful play and some of the initiatives that have been implemented at the LEA level. I know in working with an LEA, I saw it, in those classroom walkthroughs, that there were pieces that were being implemented already that were developmentally appropriate practices. So I think it's finishing the bridge. I don't think we have to start building it. I think we have to finish it. And with the crosswalks and some of that language that's mutually understandable, I think that will really help as we move forward to bridge that gap.
Just waiting to make sure no one else is going to comment. I did appreciate that you brought out the leadership part, and I think it's up to us. There's a lot of work happening around leadership for PK3, and so I think understanding that all these various agencies and like CSLA and UTK. I mean, there's all kinds of things happening in county offices. So really understanding that and not working in isolation, which we tend to do. So we're not all doing the same thing separately. It's good to remember and think about where are those opportunities for all of us to do this together and build the knowledge simultaneously. And Member Forbes, I think you had another comment. Okay. All right. First of all, thank you all for the detailed information, for the robust conversation. Is there any last minute comments? All right. Thank you very much for joining us today. And this does move us into the public comment portion of our day. Does any member of the public have anything it wishes to say? Please raise your hand in the Zoom, or we will wait a moment to see if we have anyone indicating they wish to speak in the chat function.
No public comments, Marty.
Okay, thank you. Okay, having no further business, I adjourn the January 2023 meeting of the Committee on Accreditation. Our next meeting of the committee will be on March 9th and 10th of this year. Thank you, everybody.
Sorry I couldn't be with you guys in person this time around.
Thank you, Kathy.
Are we going to
Stay well.
do oh, thanks. Are we going to do 2 days in March?
No.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, we're still recording. Hold on one second. We're going to close the recording.